Manuel, please, can you begin now?
Okay. Hello and good afternoon. As you may know, you're in Lagos, Nigeria, and from whatever part of the country that you are in, or whatever part of the world you're calling from. So I want to do a very special welcome each and every one of us to today's webinar. You can agree with me that it has been awesome. So this is just, let's say, a continuation of the good tides we've enjoyed with the Amoy Data Science internship program. So we have a very interesting package for us today. But then before we go on to give us the beautiful thing that we have in stock, let's get a few feedbacks from us. So our participants on Zoom, participants on YouTube, this is where we get to hear, especially how the open source project has been. So because we want to get as much views as possible in a short time, so I would invite us to go to our chat box. If you can confidently say that the open source project has been amazing and the experience has been something that you would want to relive, just go to the chat box and just type FINE, F-I-N-E, F-I-N-E. So if I see that, I know that yes, at least I have one or two persons that want to tell us that that the open source project has been wonderful. So I'm looking out now. I'll participate on YouTube as well. You can put it in the comment box. F-I-N-E. Saying that to tell me that the open source project is great. So while I wait that, in my own experience so far with the open source project, what we've seen, what we've heard, and what we've read as well, I think somebody was commenting that the open source project has helped him understand all the theories that he has learned from the beginning of the internship program. So I want to commend that intern who is pleading anonymity. Commend that intern for that very, very, very direct feedback. So we still await more. Oluwa Shayo Akinkumi saying fine. So I think that's the first response we've gotten so far. So we still have time for more. Okay, we're getting more feedbacks from YouTube. The experience of the open source project has been enthralling, which is another amazing feedback. So thank you guys. Thank you very much for these ones. Getting a lot of messages, but then we need to move on. 4 minutes already. So without further ado, let's move on to the package for today. And that will make me leave control to our very own Tobiloba Adejumo, who we handle from this moment onward. Toby.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel. Choices greetings to everyone. I am very, very excited to welcome you all for today's webinar. And as usual, yes, I think we can begin now. We have interns already on Zoom and YouTube, fine. I am blissful to have you all here today, and customarily, you can use the live chat to let me know how you're feeling this afternoon. Shout out to Osage for being the first to join via Zoom, and Biggie Bigs on YouTube. Now, moving on very quickly to our housekeeping rules. I know you will have questions, and when you do, please wait till the end of the presentation to avoid lag. You can also leave your questions on Slido using the event code 1952552. Again, I repeat, you can also leave your questions on Slido using the event code 19552. Now let's turn our table over to our speaker, who is going to lead a practical session on getting Kubeflow up and running on Google Cloud. Now, this is a topic we should all be acutely interested in because we are going to require this knowledge in our open source project. And also Kubeflow makes it very easy to manage scalable and portable ML while supporting the full lifecycle of a machine learning product. Our speaker today is a data analyst at Maven Code. What is so special about her is her superpower, which is simplifying complex things. As you listen to our presentation today, you will notice our subject matter expertise in business intelligence, time series forecasting, and data analysis. Now, with several accreditations, years of experience in data science, and a master's in information technology from Rutgers University, today's session is going to be very impactful. I urge you again to get your pens ready because the table is about to be broken. Let's welcome Similoluwa Adelore. Similoluwa, it's so good to have you here today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Toby, for the introduction. So I think we can just get right to it. I'll just share my screen and we can begin. Okay. Share. Okay. I hope everybody can see my screen. Just signify if you can.
Yes, I can.
Okay. Thank you very much. So today, as Toby has rightly said, we're going to be talking about getting Kubeflow started on GCP, that is the Google platform. So before we start, I'd just like to give a few disclaimers. So I know some of you want to follow on as I, do the practical session for this course, but I'll share the slides that I have made. I tried to make them as explanatory as possible and show the steps that are needed in deploying Kubeflow and running the machine learning pipeline. So I'll make sure I share my slides with everyone at the end of, I'll get it across to Toby so he can share it with you, so you can use it for reference when you want to create your pipeline. Okay, so let's get right into it. So the agenda for today, we're going to, the first thing we're going to do is to set up our environment on GCP, then create a cluster. That is after we have installed the KFCCO, that is the CIL for Kubeflow, and then get the Kubeflow dashboard up and running, and then run a sample of an ML pipeline on Kubeflow. So the example we're going to be focusing on is a classification problem with an artificial neural network algorithm to classify the churn rate for a particular subscription service. And then we have the question and answer. So, yes. So also, I'll not be going too much into details concerning the theoretical aspect because I know I have limited time. So just bear with me when it comes to theory. So yes, what is machine learning? I know you must have heard this this definition many times. That machine learning is the field of study that gives computers the abilities to learn without being explicitly programmed. So basically, in very simple terms, what it means is to make a computer more intelligent, basically. And with the help of data, that it can span from text, from numbers and images and all sorts. But then I've listened to, people speak and talking about how machine learning can prove difficult sometimes, most especially when it comes to deploying, the algorithms that you build. So first thing is the machine learning workflow usually has these two stages, most especially when you're just practicing. You go through mostly these two stages. this comes with maybe the cloud and what we're going to be talking about today, some of which we're going to be talking about today. So you go through the data ingestion, to the data analysis, data transformation, validation, splitting, training, and all of that. But you want to make sure that the machine learning you're or the algorithm you're building is reusable. You don't want to keep writing the same codes over and over again for a problem that could be solved with a particular model that you have already pre-trained, or even for a problem that you have already pre-trained. So you want, if you have data coming in streams, you want the pipe, let's just say a pipeline. You want the algorithm to keep running and splitting the data, transforming it, and all that. So you don't have to keep going through that process, So you also want the algorithms you build to be scalable. That is, you want them to work on any platform you put them on. You want anybody that has access to the application that you've built to get the results they need without any errors, right? So, and talk about it being computationally expensive sometimes, range on your system might not be the best, on your local system might not be the best way to go when it comes to machine learning, because data is usually a lot. I've gone through, I was given the opportunity to see some of the open source projects that you guys are working on right now, and the data still looks, okay, but when you get into the real world, you see really bad data and a lot of that kind of bad data. So I had the opportunity to work with, I worked with 400 images, 400,000 images, sorry. I was trying to extract the text from that data. Imagine running that on your system. It will take days and days for you to go through that completely for a natural language processing problem. So those are some of the challenges that people have gone through and people still go through. And that's why we have platforms like Kubernetes, Kubeflow, the cloud, and ways to run things easily. So Kubeflow, it's a machine learning toolkit for on Kubernetes. So we're going to be running Kubeflow on a Kubernetes cluster, basically. So Kubeflow is a curated set of compatible tools and artifacts that lays the foundation for running production machine learning applications. So it makes up for many of the limitations that I talked about, right? Scalability, composability, and portability. So we'll be going into a practical section. I would want to make sure I'm doing a good job with time. Yeah, so I'll just split my screen. Just let me know if you can see both sides. Okay, so we can do that. Okay, this is not right. Okay, can everybody see my screen clearly? I know this is half
Yes,
of the
I
screen,
can. I can
okay.
see it. It's half.
Okay, that's all right. So now we're going to go into deploying Kubeflow on GCP, on the Google Cloud Platform. So the first thing you need to do is to have an account on the Google Cloud console, the platform. You need to have an account. Then you create a new project. So some of these things are done just because of time, but I'll show you, I created a new project right here. So you can create a new project by just clicking this right here, and a new project just pops up with the project ID. So after that, you need to enable all these APIs. Some of these APIs some of them you really need for Kubeflow, and some of them are just precautions. They were on the documentation for Kubeflow. So one of those things that they're instructed to enable, so you don't have any itches or hiccups on the way. So please, while you're running this, enable all these APIs. You will need the Compute Engine API. You need the Kubernetes Engine API. because the compute engine is where your VM is, your virtual machine, and the Kubernetes engine is where your cluster would be, and the cloud deployment manager, very important. Yeah, cloud deployment manager API. So after doing that, the next step is to set up the old credentials. Oh, I'm not sure if I pronounced that correctly, but I think that's fine. So set up that the credentials. So let me just, I think I can work with this so you can see it very clearly. You go to the API and services in your search box. You go straight to API and services.
I'm sorry, Simi. I
Yes?
think we can only see your presentation slide.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
There's something wrong. Let me share this. I'm so sorry. Could you see my the Google Cloud
Yes, we
platform
can.
before? Could you see what I was doing before?
No.
No.
So just your slide that was visible to us.
Oh, sorry about that. So I was saying that, let me just back up a bit. I wish these notifications will not keep popping up on my screen. Okay, so so the first thing you need to do is to have a Google Cloud account, and then you create a new project. This is a simple way to create a new project. You just go right here to this drop down, and then you create a new project from here, and then it pops up right there. Let me just do that so you can see just for, yes. So the name of the project, you can change the name if you prefer. If you have a particular organization you're working with and they have an account, then you add that and then you create, and that's just it. And they give you the project ID. So when you've created that, you need to enable all the APIs that I talked about. They're needed. And then you go straight to API and services. API and services. Okay, cool. Right here, you go to the the old consent screen. Yes, here you need to create the client. You need to get your client keys and client ID. So you click on external. So it's available to any user with a Google account. You create. Right. So you give your application name, name. Let's just call it webinar. Right. I may not save this. And then you have the right email address that you're using for the your Google Cloud platform, right? And then under your authorized domains, you put in your ID. You can just get it from here. This is the project I'm working on. Your project ID, copy it in, and .cloud.goog right there, and then you save it. That's all that you need to do here. So when it's done, please just ignore this. This has nothing to do with you. I think it's just from the Google platform, itself. So then you go into credentials after creating that. Yeah, in credentials, you want to create credentials. You create the client ID. That's what you need. Then your application type is web application. Here you can choose the default name, or you change the name to whatever you want it to be, and then you create. Right? Once you create, your ID will be given to you, so you can save them somewhere because you're going to need them after. Oh no. It's right inside. If you lose it, you can just go into the credentials you created, and then you see them pop up here, right here. So now you still need to edit this a little. I'm sorry, I need to get, there's a link. I need to share my whole screen so this works. Sorry, I'm trying to get the particular link that is needed for this. Okay, cool. So you need this client. This is right. I put it in the slides, so you don't need to look for it. And then you have it. It's also on the Kubeflow documentation. You just go to set up auth credentials, and then you find it there. So you need this link, which you're going to, and here you're going to impute the client ID that you have right here. So we save this. Just put it in my notebook. Right, and then you save the client.
Simi, we are seeing a Google Chrome. We are not seeing what you're seeing.
Wow, this is, I'm so sorry about this. Isn't share, right? Why is this happening?
Yeah, we saw it previously. Yeah, we
Can you see everything now?
Yes, we can.
It's clear, right?
Yes, it is. It's clear.
Okay. So I was saying that you copy in your client ID, you have to save them, and your client secrets, because you're going to use them while you're installing Kubeflow, right? So you copy this and paste it somewhere. Yeah, I copied it here, and then you copy the secrets. I'm going to try to move faster now. Okay, and so the next thing is to use the authorized redirect URLs. You add, there's a link, this HTTPS and blah 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 stuff. You need to, you can get it from the slides, as I was saying before. Can you see what I'm showing, the notepad I'm showing right now?
Yes,
okay.
I can see it.
Okay, cool. So this link, you need this link from the platform, the documentation, where you're just going to impute in the client secret that you have copied in. So you just copy this and put this in here, copy the whole thing and put it right here, and you're done. Just click enter and all of that is created. So you're done with that aspect. So let's go to, now we can install Kubeflow. Let's go to the dashboard. So the next thing to do is to activate your Cloud Shell. I heard some people are having issues with their cards. I don't know how to help with that, because you need to put in your card for the free tier, the free tier version of Google Cloud. So if it's possible to use another email or something, maybe that could work for you. Yeah, so let's get right into it. So the first thing is to make sure you boost your shell. Can you see my split screen now? I hope this is clear.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Right. So you boost your shell, and let it just need to run for a while. So I'm just going to copy and paste a lot of this code because I'm not, my time is running out fast and we have a lot to cover. Too long. If the worst comes to worst, I think I already have it running the Kubeflow platform, but I think it would be very useful to just show every step of the way so that it's just easier. But most of what you need to do is just a copy and paste. Just copy and paste these things and copy them properly and paste them. Okay, should be up by now. Good. So the next thing is to choose a deployment name. You can name it anything. I named mine webinar. I'll try to move as fast as possible. And you export your project ID, which we got before. You can always get your project ID from the dashboard. It's right here, or you get it from here, right here. Just copy it from there. Sorry. And then you pick a particular zone. I just put in a few zones that you could use. So I'll just use the central zone, US Central C. Then configure your project ID. Authorize. You configure the zone that you're using. Yes, done. And then you enable services. So while this is done, the next thing is to install the KFCCO. So the KFCCO is a command line interface that is used to install and configure Kubeflow. So what we can use it to do is to deploy your Kubeflow dashboard from the Kubernetes cluster, which we're going to be doing today. So the first thing you want to do is to download the release. You can get this release on the KFCCO repository. So once you download it, you expand it, and then you put it in a path, the home path. Okay, qfctl, you have it here, and then cd. Sorry, something is wrong there. Oh, sorry. Oh. Sorry, something is. Can we play? I think so. Sorry, my screen just froze. So I'm just hoping it comes back. Okay. So we have CD. CD. Okay, cool. And PWD. You have your home directory, and then you export the path into that home directory. Adelore / and then enter. The next thing is to authorize to log in. So you copy and paste that key here, and then you authorize this to yes. Make sure it's the right email you're also clicking in, the email address for your console. And you allow it. I'm just hoping we don't get any errors. So because of our time, we'll have to debug. Okay, fine. Everything is good. Then you export your config URL. Done. The next step is to put in the client ID and the client keys secrets that you. Oh, this is not working out well. Trying to see. Sorry. Oh, that was. Can you see my screen?
Yes, but it's still loading. It's currently dark. Yes, I can see it, but not the one that you were previously displaying. It's a new one. It's a browser that is currently opening Chrome. Yeah, I can see the previous one now.
Yes. I don't know why this is happening this way. But then, so you copy in your, we have this here. The secret that you had copied before, client secret. Enter, and then you have your client secret ID. And let's get it from here. So I'm trying to get the client secret. No, I cannot do it. So here, client secret, and then you just set up the Kubeflow environment variables and apply Kubeflow. So this is definitely going to take a while to run. So just give it a few minutes to just, once that is done, you create a cluster, and then you get a link from, after creating, when running this code, the last one, you get a link, you wait for about 30 minutes, and then your Kubeflow dashboard is up and running, right? So because of time, this might take some time. Oh, there's an error somewhere. I think I made a mistake somewhere. Yeah, usually when I get this code error, I usually just restart I clear all that I had done, and I restart and do it again, and then I get the proper result. But yeah, while applying it. But let's just go right into creating. So if you have 0, just there's a way to just clear all that you have, restart, refresh it, and then it should start working after that. So I'll just go into the Kubernetes cluster that I had already created from the start. Sorry, I'm rushing things. I'm just trying to be mindful of time. I was given 45 minutes. Yeah, so this is what I had, the cluster I had already put in place. So just go to services and ingress. Anytime you close the Kubeflow dashboard that you have, you just go to services ingress if you want to open it up again. And then you see the link right here. Yeah, this one. And it goes to the central dashboard. So right now, what we want to do is to create an ML machine learning pipeline. I told you about the project that we want to do. It's a classification problem, and what we're trying to check or predict is if a person is going to leave a company or not, or leave a subscription or not, churn or no churn. It's a very common problem that people do. So you have data online for this. I'll just create a new server. So the first thing you're going to do is to open the notebook server, create a new server, name it, make sure it's in lowercase webinar. Webinar. Then, except you have a custom Docker image that you have already created, you can just pick any of these ones. I'm going to pick a GCP because you're running on the free tier, so it's just safer to do it that way. Then you add some data volume to it. I think everything is in place. Read right one. Yeah. And then you just launch it. Okay. Now it's done. You connect to your Jupyter notebook. So here's the Jupyter notebook. Here's the volume that you created. So what we're going to do now is to open up a terminal. I already have on my GitHub, I already have the project there. I put in the data. It's important that you also upload your data online because you want the pipeline. I put my data in here. You want the pipeline to download the data So the way to download the data is to open up after putting in the data on Git. Or that is because I have the data is not too much. There's 11 rows and about 6,000 columns, which is not all that bad. So it was easy for me to put it on Git. But in other cases, it's much better to just use a bucket on GCP. Okay, so but if you have your data, like you're working with, I think you definitely have your data on GitHub. Just go here. Where's the screen? Okay. You'd copy this link. You need this link so that the Kubeflow can download your data, right? Sorry, I keep clicking on that because it keeps popping up. Okay. So is there a way to? Okay, cool.
I can see your screen.
Fine. Yeah. Now I just wanted to take this down. It was disturbing. So yeah, when you have the data, now you need to clone the repository where your pipeline is. The first thing after getting your data on GitHub, you want to write your code. You might write it in your Jupyter notebook on Kubeflow, or you already run it on your local system and then just put it on GitHub. Either way works fine. So yeah, we're going to clone this repository in this. I'm coming to get the link. Okay. So this is the link for the GitHub, and then git clone the repository. Paste the link. So I've cloned my repo, open it up. I have my pipeline already there. So I open up the pipeline. So on Kubeflow doesn't have, the Jupyter Notebook doesn't have some of the dependencies that we'll need. Only NumPy, you can just import NumPy without installing it, but you need to install every other thing. Pandas, Matplotlib, SciPy, Scikit-learn, TensorFlow, you need to install all of them and install people also. So you run this code, install. Okay, I think it's done. No. Okay, it's done. So you restart, and then you run the dependencies. So I put in my data right here, the link for the data. So it downloads in the data. So you can see the data here, the number of rows and the columns. So we do some preprocessing, look into the data. This preprocessing you can make into a pipeline on its own. So I had to, let me just run through it. So you have all these columns, the credit score of the person, geography, gender, age, tenure, and all of this. You can see from here that you need to do some label encoding to turn this gender into ones and zeros, and the geography also, right? So, and at the end of the day, you're going to have to scale the data because you need to scale the data because they have different values, most especially when you have prices in your X variables. You would need to scale the data because they are of different with. So I encoded all that was needed to be encoded, dropped the columns that were the additional columns that were created, and here. So the preprocessing is done. The next thing is to install Kubeflow Pipeline SDK. That is the library for you to use to build your Kubeflow pipeline. Run this, which compile, and then you import Kubeflow pipeline, KFP, and the other dependencies. Right now, this is where you begin to build your pipeline. Right, my pipeline has 4 components, where the volume, where the data is, and how then the sharing is done from that volume. Then you have the training, you have the prediction, and then you have the results. Right, that's how my pipeline was structured. So this is the training training function before. So there are 2 ways to create a pipeline. Sorry, a component. Sorry, there are 2 ways to create a component. Either you use a YAML file to create the component from scratch. That is, you would have to create a Docker file and then create the YAML file, or you create a component from a data from a function, a Python function. So what I'm going with is creating it from a Python function. So make sure you import on the dependencies needed. I had to do this because this particular code imported this because while I just tried to install it normally, I was getting some errors in my pipeline. So I just used this, installed all I needed. My preprocessing is also in here. What you can do, another thing that you can do is to make this its own pipeline, right? You make it its own pipeline, and then you have outputs that run output. You save the outputs. That is, you can save the training, the train tests as a different file. Save the X test, the X train, the Y train, the after you split the data, X test as different files, then you impute them. They become inputs in your training function, right? But I just put everything in here together. It's much better to do the preprocessing separately and then the training to define the functions separately. So I downloaded data. First thing important, download the data. Yeah, you do your preprocessing, and then I defined the algorithm. This is a neural network classification for the classification. Yes, so I'll run this. So earlier I defined an output directory that is where all the files I'm saving. There are different outputs for this training data. I needed to save the model. I needed to save the test data because I'm going to use the test data in the prediction model. So I opened up a file. You would see that inside data here. I was supposed to. Okay, have I run this? Sorry, output directory. Okay, so you should see this right here. It's not coming up. So, but it saves the test data. I saved my model, right? In that path, I saved my the test data that I'm going to impute. So these are outputs from my training data. The input is the data, and then the outputs are what I save, the model that I'm going to save, and then the test data that I'm going to impute into my, I'm supposed to have reduced how many epochs this is, impute into my prediction, right? So this would run for a while. I should have reduced this to about, okay, it's 50 epochs. So that's fine. I think it should be done soon. So while that is running, I created a function also for my prediction, passing in data path that you need, and then the model file also that you're going to run. So you open up the model that you saved from the training data, that is the output you saved from the training data, and the test data that you need. You open it up, then you do your predictions, right? This is going to be my output. What I want to see, the output is, you want to see the prediction at one side and see the actual value at the other side. So I made this a Boolean because I want to see true and false, true and false. That's the result I want. So I run this, I think the training is done. So it was successful. I told it to print the prediction has been successful. And then you'd wrap the functions that you have made into containers. And this is the way to do that. So with this function, this com func to container up, and then the base image, this is already in the Docker. You can also use the Docker registry. So then you create the client, that is, you want it to connect to the dashboard that you have already made, the dashboard that is running, and then you create your pipeline right here. The first thing you do is to define the pipeline, the name of the pipeline, and give a description for the pipeline, and then you create the steps you want your pipeline to take. So the first thing is the volume, like I said, the volume which shares the data between the different components, right? You have the training, you want to share your data with the training, share the data with also the prediction, and share data with the print prediction, right? So you define the part, the data, because you want your data to also come into the pipeline and the model, and you create your pipeline. The next thing is to run it, run the path, create a model path where you want the model to be stored in your pipeline. And yes, you create the experiment. Have I run this? No, sorry. Run path. Yes, these are the arguments, the model path, just like we had done before, the data path and the model path. These are the arguments we want to put into our the pipeline. So when you run this, also the compiling is done. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. You also compile then it automatically creates a YAML file with everything together in it. So my pipeline is running now. I think it's currently training the data. Let's check the logs. Right. So here you can see what's going on in the pipeline, in the logs. Okay. So you can see these arrows. It's just showing you how the data is shared in your pipeline, and then print prediction. So when you open your print prediction, you have your results. true and false. So it got this right. You can see false and false. It got the second wrong. The classification was wrong, and then false, false, and the rest is false. So this is basically a run through of how your pipeline should work. Yeah. Thank you very much. I think I'm done with that. So if we have any questions, I think we can do
All
that now.
right. Thank you so much, Simi. This was super insightful, and even though you spent a lot of our time already, it's a privilege to to be graced by your presence here today. Thank you again. I love the style you took, in elucidating and conveying your message, and I'm quite sure that this feeling is not just from me alone. I'm sure it's also from the interns. Now we have some questions here. The first on my list here is from Patrick. So Patrick wants to know why you're not using sklearn pipeline, and he wants you to explain the code that uses SYS and sub-process.
sklearn pipeline.
Yeah, why not using sklearn
No,
pipeline?
there's already a library for, if you check the documentation, there's already a library to use when you're creating your pipeline, which is the KFP, the SDK. So I don't know what you mean by the sklearn. I'm sorry, I don't know what that is.
All right,
But there's
Patrick.
already, there's a library to use for that. That's the SDK. You can check it on the documentation online on Kubeflow.
All right, thank you, Simi. Patrick, you can also try and elucidate more in the comment section. Now, this is from Sophia Jack. Please, do you have to install Docker in order to create Docker files?
If you want to create Docker files, you're not doing that with GCP here. That's if you want to do, maybe you want to build a custom image or something separately, then you have to use Docker to do that.
All right, thank you. I have to just read some of the comments that I'm getting on Zoom here because I feel obligated to read them. So this is from Oluwashayo Akinkunmi. That was good. John Iwuz also says, I really enjoyed every part of this webinar. This was really insightful. Thank you, Simi. So another question again from Sophia Jack. So also a default artifact storage bucket is created when deploying Kubeflow. Should that bucket be used for running the pipeline, or a new one can be created?
Can you repeat the question again? Sorry.
Now, based on the Docker file, she's asking again. Also, a default artifact storage bucket is created when deploying Kubeflow. Should that bucket be used for running the pipeline, or a new one can be created?
Is that where your data is being stored? If that's where your data is being stored, you just take out, if you're putting your data in there, you just take out the data and just put it into, from the bucket. You channel the data you put in the code that collects the data from the buckets that has already been created. So you can run with the data. I think I'm not very quite clear on what the question is really, but I think that's the answer I can give.
All right, Sophia. So, all right, Simi. Sophia, if you can, give more clarity to your question again in the comment section, so Simi addresses them. Now, another question again, please. Can you explain how the JSON file is created and where it is stored, and how it can be called to the TensorBoard viewer?
I didn't create any JSON file at all. I didn't create a JSON file.
Okay, so this is another.
I'm not sure where questions are coming from yet,
Okay,
because the questions are not really pertaining to some of the things that I did, right? There's no JSON file created.
all right, so she's saying that the questions are related to visualizations.
Oh,
So
I didn't
yeah.
touch anything on visualizations at all. That may be later, but I didn't do anything on visualizations.
Okay. Now here is another one. Please, could you explain the Kubernetes architecture?
What do you mean, the Kubernetes architecture and how it runs?
Yes, I think so. Not well explained.
I think there's a diagram for it online, right? You can go to the next question. I'll just find it simple way to.
Yeah, it looks like that's the last question. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Let me just.
Yeah, as you're doing that, here is one from Iwoma. So, on what condition would you create a Docker image for your pipeline?
If you have a custom image, if you want to create a custom image, then you can do that. But
Okay.
you can use the free ones online there, the ones that have already been created.
Okay. So, are you sharing something?
Not yet.
Okay. Looks like we've covered all the questions already.
So, who is the person who asked about the architecture? I could explain that to the person after this.
Okay.
If the person could just reach out to me, I'm on the Slack.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So looks like we've covered all questions here, and we're already 1 minute past our time. Do you have any last? Okay, this is one from Patrick. Let's just take this and and call it a meeting. So please, can you help me understand better what distributed data engineering means?
I don't know. I don't know what it means. I do not really know. I'm actually new to the whole data engineering thing, so I can't really explain right now. I can read up just to answer your question and then give you your answers, but I do not have an answer for that right now.
All right. Thank you, Simi. It looks like we've covered all questions yet again, and we already passed our time. Do you have anything else to say or you want to cover before you final wrap up?
No, I just hope everyone just understood everything that I had tried to explain.
I think so. The comments have been great so far. Awesome. Thanks, Simi. Thank you, everyone. We appreciate you for being here. Thanks again for joining us today, and we'll see you another time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.